will need your goggles, your controllers, and something to time yourself. So a cell phone stopwatch will probably work great for the purposes of this presentation. Okay, so I'm going to get started. So just to start kind of from the very beginning, what are AR and VR? So in augmented reality or AR, holograms appear in your real environment around you. And in some cases, you can interact with these holograms. What's nice about goggles is that your hands are free. So you have the option to interact with the holograms. If you're doing AR on a phone and you're like holding up your phone and then you're trying to like interact with the hologram, it's a lot harder. So that's one of the reasons that we do AR and VR through goggles, is so you have the freedom to interact with the virtual environment with your hands. One of the nice things about AR is that you can see other people in your environment. You can see the environment around you. You can imagine in schools, you know, having kids put on VR goggles, they could be like crashing into each other, like crashing into desks, all sorts of things could happen. So AR has a lot of really powerful affordances, both for like safety and for being able to read each other's body language really well and collaborate really effectively. But virtual reality also has a lot of affordances that AR doesn't have. So in virtual reality, you're in a virtual environment that appears around you with objects and avatars that you can interact with. You cannot see the real world around you, and you are instead immersed in a virtual world. So VR is great because it gives you this sense of immersion, like you've been transported to a new place with new rules. But you know, you can't have the same kinds of fully embodied interactions yet with the people you're working with, right? Because you can't see all of their body language and facial expressions perfectly. Hopefully that's coming. We're not there yet. The other nice thing about VR, and one of the reasons we're using it today, is because it can connect people over space. We don't all have to be in the same room together. We're all over the world in this conference, and you know, we can all join virtual reality. We're actually not going to join something together because the logistics of that were just a lot to get it all on all of y'all's goggles. We're going to join rooms separately, but we could actually, with VR, all of us join a room in a virtual world together. Okay, so why are AR and VR important just in general and when thinking about the possibilities for embodied learning? So AR and VR technologies can leverage in really interesting and powerful ways the fact that cognition, that the way we think and reason in mathematics, is embodied, is situated, and is distributed. So, you know, XR technologies, XR is kind of an umbrella term for AR and VR. You know, XR technologies can use the power of a rich story context, a sense of place. They can immerse learners in communities, in new worlds that situate learning in ways not previously possible. So the first module we do today will kind of show that. XR can also leverage that cognition is embodied. It can utilize that knowledge is gestural, perceptual, and action-based in nature, and really enhance the power of gestures in really important new ways, which I'll talk about more in just a second. MR can also leverage that cognition is distributed by creating new models for how learners can collaborate with each other and how learners can embody concepts in a coordinated way. And this is the part we're going to kind of miss out on today because of the nature of the experience we're doing. But in my final 5 to 10 minutes, I'm going to talk more about this. So XR environments, they can be dynamic. So like in the real world, you might have a cube, a real actual cube, and you can pick it up, you can look at it, you can take measurements of it, but you can't like pull on the cube and make it bigger, or you can't like smush the cube down. Like it's a physical cube. But in XR environments, the cube can be a dynamic object that you can transform and change in many ways. You can have immediate measurement of different properties of the cube as you're interacting with it and changing it. You can have immediate feedback from the simulation and this kind of networked knowledge where many different, what I loved about Natalie's talk, all these different modalities kind of come together in unique ways. So, you know, AR and VR also have the gestural interface and three-dimensional nature of physical objects. So hand tracking has gotten good enough now that you can manipulate objects in AR and VR using just your hand. So we're going to be using the controllers today, but you can turn on hand tracking on your goggles. It's a pretty easy setting to toggle on. And then you can interact with all the menus and everything using just your hands. You don't actually need controllers. As long as your hands are in the field of view of the goggles can see your hands well enough to just use your hands as the controllers. And they offer new possibilities for whole body movements, immersion, and the blending of physical and virtual spaces. So kind of using the best affordances of each. Like in these virtual worlds, you can interact with objects that are truly three-dimensional, that are not projections of three-dimensional objects on a two-dimensional screen or a two-dimensional piece of paper. You can walk around them, you can look at them from different perspectives, you can pick them up and move them. And, you know, these kinds of technologies as a result have the potential to fundamentally change the nature of education and of knowledge itself. So just as one of many examples, these kinds of technologies have already allowed mathematicians to prove new theorems that it wasn't previously possible to prove until they could interact with these kinds of dynamic holograms. Okay, so that's kind of the intro. Now I'm going to go over some logistical things. To participate in the next portion of this activity, which will run around 30 minutes, you should have the Oculus Quest or Oculus Quest 2 goggles. They should be charged. You should have 2 controllers with adequate battery power. Your goggles are going to need to be connected to your home Wi-Fi or the Wi-Fi wherever you are. You'll need to have Pandemic by Prisms from the Oculus App Lab installed on your goggles, and recommended to have a 6-foot by 6-foot clear indoor area to play in. So you will not be able to see the world around you. So make sure there's no small children or pets that you could step on. Just put them in another room, make sure they're completely closed off. It's not worth taking any risk in that respect. So this game, you can play it while sitting at your seat. It's not going to work perfectly, but I did it yesterday. I mean, you will probably have to stand up at some points to press things. You know, you may try to press something and your computer will get in the way. But if you want to do the stationary boundary with this game, it is technically possible. So stationary boundary, if you want to just stay seated, you can give it a shot. But for the best experience, it's the 6-foot by 6-foot clear area to play in. And then if you don't have your goggles, we were going to have y'all join the working group, but it sounds now like what we're going to do is just have y'all take a break and hang out, and you're welcome to come to listen in on the discussions that we're going to have, and also come to the end part of this. Okay, so just for time, I'm not going to show you the demo for Pandemic by Prisms, but you can see this picture and already see like how cool the environment is. So basically in this environment, you're going to be modeling exponential functions using various different kinds of modalities. So there's like the virtual model of the people, which is represented in a couple different ways and how they spread disease among them. There's the tabular representation, there's the graphical representation, there's the equation, and then there's like over here, there'll be like standardized test type questions that you're kind of coordinating with all of these other sources that become kind of more and more removed from the first thing, which is the real world, where you see these little people walking around infecting each other. Okay. So let's go to the next slide. Okay, so what we're going to do first is we're going to play module 1 in Pandemic by Prisms. And this module 1 is like an intro module. You might not get through the whole thing in the 6 minutes that I'm going to give you, but it'll just give you a taste for how the possibilities for like situated learning using VR. So what you're going to do when I release y'all in just a second, you're going to set your phone alarm for exactly 6 minutes from now, and make sure the alarm is loud because you might be really immersed and not want to come out after 6 minutes. Then make sure your microphone is muted. If you want to leave your camera on so we can see you like thrashing around, actually that's fine, but you can turn your camera off. And then put your computer volume down to 0. Put your computer volume down to 0, because if people need technical support, I'm going to stay on this channel. and you don't need to be hearing all my technical support in the background as you're trying to play this game. So only when I say rejoin, I don't leave the call, but only like turn your volume up and come back to the call before the 6-minute mark if you're having technical problems. So you're going to go to your clear area and put your goggles on. Hold your controllers correctly positioned in each hand. I always mix up which is right and which is left. You'll probably have stickers on it still. If you don't, the game will kind of tell you which is right and which is left. It'll display it in the VR. So set up your play area. You can try playing sitting in the chair, but you will likely need to stand in place and you will need some airspace around you if you play in the chair. And then the way to get in is to click on, you have this kind of panel thing, which should be a little bit below you. And there's these 9 dots, this 3x3 array of dots on this panel. That's how you're going to get in. So you click on that, and it brings you to your apps menu. And in your apps, you'll have Pandemic by Prisms, and you'll click on it to open. And the way you click is your trigger. There's like a million different things on this controller to click on. So it can be kind of confusing, but trigger like you're firing a gun is how you click on things. Okay, so then you want to click Load Module 1 by physically reaching out and pressing the button with your hand. This is a little confusing because up until now you've been like, you have this little shoot thing and you're like shooting what you want. But when you get into Pandemic by Prisms, you physically reach up and click Load Module 1 while holding the controller. When your phone alarm goes off, and then you should be immersed in Module 1. When your phone alarm goes off after 6 minutes, you want to click the O button. It'll be on your right-hand controller right here. And that will allow you to quit the game. If while you're in the game this time or next time, you want to take a screenshot or record, you can also use this O button to do that. Okay, so everybody go off and set your phones for 6 minutes and load Module 1. Juliana, if you're still here, if you wouldn't mind sticking around for these parts to help me with the technical problems, that would be great. If you're already gone.
Of course, yeah,
okay.
I'm on.
Awesome.
I figured I put a message in the group message to let people know that I was DRA and that if they had any questions, they could reach out to me. But I assumed I would stay on for like this entire time just to make sure if anybody needed any help that I was here.
Awesome, thank you.
Candace, I'm here too. I'm not able to do it because I get sick, but I'm happy to monitor the chat for you.
Yes, I meant to give a disclaimer about that. Oculus has it down to like from 20% of people who used to get motion sick. Now it's like 5, but like 5% is still a lot if you're teaching a class of like 20 students. So if you get motion sick, like it is what it is. You can Google tips to reduce motion sickness, but I would just recommend not doing it. As somebody who gets motion sick from a lot of other stuff, it can ruin your whole day. So don't do it.
I think they have settings now on it as well that have to do with mobility functions that try to lessen the like shakiness of the applications now. So that if you are one of the people who are investing and got the VR goggles, that might be something for you to look into as well for further discovery of different applications.
Yeah, if I use the HTC Vive for 5 minutes, my whole day is shot because of the motion sickness. So
I'm sorry, I have a very naive question. I had a little trouble setting up the Oculus glasses, and it seems like I have a Windows Surface PC, and I'm not sure if I can download anything from Google Play from Oculus.
So you never need your PC at any point in the process. It's the goggles is its own computer.
Okay. So when the goggles are at a stage that say, link your headset to your mobile device. Now, I was thinking my laptop PC would be the mobile device.
So I just linked it to my phone.
Okay, I'll try that. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know if Juliana, what you did at that point. Don't you have a Mac or?
I had a PC actually at the time of
Okay.
setup, and I now have a Mac. It's compatible with both. But I also just downloaded it to my phone. I believe there should be a button also that allows you to click like skip and set up for later. I think the main advantages of setting it up to your phone is that you can get notifications for it, and when you're doing the setup process, it's a little bit easier to navigate through like your phone.
Yeah, but it
the
shouldn't
tool
require another device. Like it should just work on its own. Yeah. So if you can skip it, that's probably best. All right, we hopefully should all be coming back in about 1 minute, I would hope. Okay, so if some people are still in virtual land, that's okay, but we're going to start just talking about this for a couple minutes before we go and launch into the bigger experience with this game. So reflections, how did you feel? What did you notice? What did you wonder? Does anyone want to just give us kind of their hot take?
I think people are still reorienting to planet Earth.
To the real world. Yes.
I was looking at your slides and I was just thinking like, oh crap, I don't think I made it as far as I was supposed to, because I was able to see the tracing of the germs and I made it to the lab and then that was it.
Yeah, no, you weren't supposed to make it
Okay.
farther than that.
Sweet. Then I feel like this is definitely one of those, like, that was an experience that helped ground and motivate the next part, the mathematics that was going to come. Yeah.
And I'll just add to that I wanted to move away from the people that were spreading the virus. Like I tried.
Oh, no. There's like real fear there when you hear that coughing, like, oh my gosh.
Started back up and my guardian was like telling me you can't back up anymore.
It took me some time to realize that I need to tap that. I was wearing a watch, basically.
The watch, yes, yeah.
Yeah.
So when I skip this one and go right to the next one, like nobody knows how to use the watch. So the watch will be important.
Yeah.
Yeah. Other things you kind of wondered while you were in there, maybe?
There was a sense of urgency to talk to those people to feel more real, but it was not an affordance allowed at that time. I was like, it's general tendency, like before COVID, it was like when you hanging around, you're just like seeing and you wonder like, okay, is it the relationship between how the germs were transforming to the girl that like two salads and why the third girl just ran out in random people. It was like, okay, I don't know.
Yeah. So the mathematics was there, but it was in like a very situated way. Like I think just showing the transmission in that like making it visible is like a way of showing the mathematics. But in a less obvious way than we're going to see in just a second. And I want to get us into the main simulation. So okay, so in this next part, we're going to stay in the environment for 15 minutes. So yeah, we're not going to have, maybe let's do 12. We're going to stay in the environment for 12 minutes. Okay, so set your alarm for 12 minutes, mute your microphone, you can keep your camera on, computer volume down to 0. So the only thing that's different this time is you're going to click load module 2 instead of module 1. And I just wanted to highlight, you probably won't make it to this part, but if you use your wristwatch, there's like a marker that you can bring up. So I would encourage you to play with the marker just on your own. Like you can do it right at the beginning, like press your wristwatch, bring up the marker and like play with it because it's like my favorite thing. Same thing when your phone alarm goes off, to get out of here, 12 minutes, not 15. So go, module 2.
Hey, Candace.
Yes.
Okay, Tamisha and I are having some fun over here. Trying, hold on. She can't find the 9 dots. And she's literally jumping to the ceiling looking for it.
Okay, so try pressing the Oculus button, the O button on your right hand.
Okay. That's, you've got hands. I don't remember which one's the Oculus one. Got it. Okay. Oh my God, there it is, the 9 dots. Okay.
All right, thank you, Candace.
Sure.
She's good, thank you.
Wait. Click. Okay. Let's stop it.
Carl, what happens if we're so short we can't reach the table to even put anything in? I know you're laughing. I see you laughing.
Tamisha's having the exact same conversation with me right now, and I have no idea what she's talking about.
The table's like way up. We can see.
Yeah. You could try like exiting and then rejoining from a sitting position. Then hopefully did you join when you first entered the game? Were you sitting or standing?
I was sitting.
Okay. Probably then when you set your boundary around you, was the floor, like when I try to reset the boundary in this room, like the floor, it sets the floor as being like 3 feet off the floor. Are you sure the floor was set as your floor?
Oh, the floor might have been set at the desk.
Yeah. That's how it automatically is. And I have to like grab it and pull it down when I'm resetting the boundary.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
Yeah. So Juliana, I know there's instructions in the document on how to reset your boundary, right? Briefly, how do they do that?
Yeah. So is it that you didn't have, like, when you set your boundary initially, like it wasn't extensive enough, or?
Like, it sounds like she set the floor as being 3 feet above the real floor.
Okay. So I think you may have to go back to the initial, like the notifications. And if you go to like the general setup, there should be an area in there. Let me get out my headset really quickly and see like what the technical.
Okay, yeah, just put it in the chat when you
is.
get it, because we're gonna be moving into the discussion in just a sec. But yeah, just follow up in the chat if you can.
Sure. Yeah, of course.
Awesome.
It's not too difficult. And it's the same thing. It may be did you try walking out of the play area?
Yeah, that's
Like
another way to like force it to reset everything. Yeah.
If you technically walk out of what is like designated as your safe space, then it'll say, please walk back into your designated play area, and it will prompt you. It should prompt you to reset the boundaries. So you could try that.
Awesome.
If not, you can go to the to the settings, and I can look into that and then put it in the chat on how to reset the boundaries for you.
Fabulous. Okay. So people are starting to rejoin us now. And it's totally fine if, some people are still finishing up. But let's talk about what we noticed this time. So what was the experience like this time? What stood out to you? What did you notice?
I like the graphic.
The graphic?
Yeah, the graph part.
Oh, the graph. Yeah.
Yeah, I love the use of base 5 blocks. They're done in a way that I think it connects really nicely to the visual of what a cube and a super cube look like when you have base 5 blocks.
Yeah. And then like their connection to exponential growth. I mean, it was so cool. Like I saw people making like this motion. I was like, yay, they're doing it. So yeah. What else did y'all notice?
In the beginning, it was not clear to me that I need to count the cases. I was randomly filling the table, and maybe because I did not hear the audio correctly, but it's like every step need to be followed in order to I was confused, but then I was like, okay, there's a relation between this and like, I don't know why these people are coming in between. And then I was like, okay, we need to observe and count and all those things. So yeah, now we see the math clearly.
I also found when I was completing the table, I put like 5 to the 1, 5 to the 2, 5 to the 3. But then when we came back to draw the graph, it was automatically put as multiplication of 5. So that was interesting because it was like, I didn't put I didn't put the numbers like that. I did exponential and it was like multiplication. So I would imagine like kids asking about that.
So it like connects the exponents to the multiplication thing and kind of, I think it accepts both until you get to later stages. Yeah. So what was embodied about this experience, would you say?
So I have a situation where Hortensia was saying that the panel was not aligned. So I set up my boundaries at the beginning, but the first 6 minutes, the setup was very far. So I could actually grab the people and move it farther to me, like closer to me. So that was very like, I want to count them. So like, let's be here. It was very visual. Like,
yeah, the people were things that you could grab and pile and like arrange in different ways. And
when I traced the graph, I guess that was embodied, like realizing that the slope gets steeper as you go. And it was cool to draw it with like the actual pen, but in the air.
yes, and like drawing, you can draw on the people with the pen, like circle these people and, you know, do different three-dimensional drawing is like amazing. Like, why have we been drawing in 2 dimensions all this time? Like, yeah.
So that was the thing I appreciated, how the people were arranged in a point and then a line and then a square and then a cube and then a stack of cubes. Made it easier to count.
One of the cool things I thought, Candace, was when I had first walked into the lab, it said, you are entering your lab. And so I thought as a kid, doing this kind of an embodied activity, and I'm looking at my lab space, I felt could lend to my identity as a scientist and realize that like, hey, I could be a scientist. And so it kind of had this like emotional embodied component as well, above and beyond that physical part, but thinking, wow, this is my lab. This is super cool. This is all mine.
I love it. Yes. And like maybe in the future you can like personalize that lab and have like arrange things. Yeah.
So I have to say, so I'm one of the minorities who gets massively ill when I put on, so I wasn't able to put them on, but Tamisha came over so I could experience what it would look like with somebody else doing it. And what's fascinating, and I think other people, unless you had 2 people in the same room, wouldn't see, is she was talking to herself and like doing things like talking like math conversations in her head out loud, even like as if nobody was listening and paying attention, but also like her hands, even when it wasn't controllers, like I could see her typing into the calculator. Like I could see everything happening, even though I had absolutely no idea what she was doing. That was really fascinating from like a noticing perspective of just kind of not having any clue what they were actually seeing, but being able to understand the issue she was trying to do through talk. So that was kind of a neat thing I didn't expect.
Yeah, you could be having whole conversations with virtual avatars in these games. And yeah, you're just embodying things in all sorts of different ways. There's typing on the calculator, tracing the graph, grabbing the people, you know, it's just kind of all around you. Yeah. So what kinds of missed opportunities do you feel like there was for collaboration? Like, how would this be different if it was a collaborative game?
I was going to say, I had a hard time explaining what I was seeing and what my issue was. Like I'm telling Jessie, my table's too high. And she's like, what do you mean it's too high? And because she couldn't see what I was seeing. So the collaboration is a little bit more difficult.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So isn't there a casting feature?
Yep, you can it's not as easy as with some other goggles, but you can definitely cast from these goggles. Yep.
I played a couple of games on it and just cast it on my iPad so that somebody sitting near me could see what I was doing then. But even still, I mean, yeah, it's clunky, but I think that would be a useful tool for things like communicating between someone who's got the goggles on and someone who doesn't.
Yeah, so for like a teacher to be able to like look at all the casts quickly and see where different students are. Yeah, Danny, I saw you.
Similarly, I tried taking a screenshot and it was just challenging. Like I got it done, but it was clunky. It was an appreciated word.
Yeah, you can't really take them very fluidly. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the second, I at one point wanted to like just go back and listen to 10 seconds previous in the video, and I couldn't figure out how to like go back 10 seconds.
Rewind it. Yeah, you had to kind of go back farther, I'm guessing. Yeah.
So a quick tip for if you're trying to take screenshots, you can actually do it really quickly. If you go through the tutorials, they have the 6-step tutorials, and one of them sets up the voice command. And if you set up the voice command, if you click the Oculus button on the right controller twice and say, take a screenshot, the goggles will take a screenshot for you. So you don't actually have to go through like a whole process, but you have to set up the voice command first.
Yeah. So like when we're doing this with like teachers or something, and we want them to like take a screenshot of something that you want to talk about more, or that you noticed, or that you wondered about, being able to do that really fluidly is great. So I see Diana, your hand's up. We'll close with your question or comment.
Hey, I just wanted to add that you have all these great representations of the data. And so I wonder if people have thought about, you know, how this might relate to ideas of group roles and having people work in different group roles. There's so much opportunity there in terms of that.
Yeah, you could have like a community liaison and like a data analyst. And yes, I love that. Like a communication specialist or something. That would be really cool if you were in a team environment. Yeah. So I'm going to close this last 5 minutes by just giving a brief introduction to some other opportunities that AR and VR are offering for math learning. So hopefully I can just play this muted so you can kind of see. Turn that off. Yeah, so GeoGebra is in collaboration with the U.S. Department of Education grant that we received, creating a mixed reality environment where holograms appear in front of you, and you can collaboratively manipulate these holograms with other people with mathematical information displayed, and you can kind of build things, and so you can see her moving it and her partner can see her moving it. We have them social distanced in the video because of COVID, but theoretically they would both be in the same space moving the same object. And this is for AR goggles, the Microsoft HoloLens 2. But the hope is that, you know, this kind of experience could be available in a wide variety of goggles that are more affordable and scalable. So, and you can see like this offers really interesting opportunities for collaboration where both people are kind of manipulating the shapes and talking about it as they go and testing. And it also offers, you know, opportunities for learning about 3D objects in new ways. You can see here we have a sphere and you can adjust things like its radius and make all these different lines around it. And you can see here, like it shows the when spatial anchors are on and we're not worried about being COVID safe, like you can, you know, literally pass a hologram over to another person that you're working with, just like it's a real object. And then, or you can pass the hologram over to somebody who's joining virtually, who may be across the country, and you can manipulate it together in real time and talk about the shapes with each other, including with the person virtually. They can hear you through their headset. So the possibilities for kind of dynamic geometry and algebra in programs like in GeoGebra are really exciting, and they're coming. They're very close to being here. Yeah. She's really cute, but I'm not going to play the video. Another direction that I think is really exciting with AR VR is the layering of representations over the real world, specific objects in the real world. So for example, you know, we have an NSF grant where we're creating an iPad game called Math Finder, where students can create their own math walk stops in their community. So basically what it does is you hold up the iPad and it will layer a mathematical representation over a real world object or space using spatially anchored AR overlays. And we're using GeoGebra 3D again to highlight their mathematical features, and students can even create their own AR overlays using GeoGebra 3D to highlight things about their environment that they want to layer mathematical representations over. Okay, so just to close, I don't want to go into Martha's time. This is my last slide. So XR technologies can allow learners to physically and perceptually embody mathematical ideas together using multimodal forms of communication in immersive environments. These technologies leverage that all knowledge is perceptual and action-based in nature. And to normally I cite Doris' paper when I say this, but learning is moving in new ways. There's no difference between learning something and learning to move a new way. Knowledge develops within and through collaborative systems with various tools and media. So it's distributed across these collaborative systems, these tools, these media, other people. And then learning often involves applying authentic practices in immersive real world contexts and situations with a rich story and a sense of place. And XR really lends itself well to all three of these components. And I'd like to acknowledge my wonderful collaborators on these two projects, including several of whom who are here. And thank you. We are over time, so I will hand it off to Tensia.
Thank you so much. Let's clap for Candace. That was so much fun. Thank you for this opportunity. And I do want to let Martha go ahead and get set up. Martha, I think you have co-host privileges so that you can share your screen. But I just want to say a little bit about Martha's work, that she's going to talk about teacher noticing. And this morning, in our working group, people said, well, there's like the embodied aspect from the teacher, and then there's the embodied aspect from the student. And it seems like those two things are dichotomized. And I think